You think your daily routine is repetitive. Imagine living in ancient Rome, in a world without phones, without glowing screens, without clocks on the wall or alarms by the bed, where your whole day is guided by the slow movement of the sun, by footsteps in stone streets, and by the distant murmur of a huge city built from brick and marble and dust. People usually picture Rome as endless rows of shining temples, as crowds roaring in a great arena, as emperors on balconies and soldiers in heavy armor. That noise and spectacle exists somewhere in the distance, but it is not what most lives feel like from the inside. Most Romans are not senators or generals. They are bakers who rise before dawn, shopkeepers who lean on counters all afternoon, scribes who bend over wax tablets, craftspeople with stained hands, small farmers who worry about the weather, and their families who move quietly through narrow streets, thinking about bread and water and rent and health, just like you do in your own way. Tonight we are not following an emperor. We are following you. Before we step properly through the city gates, you can let your body settle a little deeper into wherever you are resting now. If these long, gentle walks through history help your mind unwind, you can always find them again later, or share them with someone else whose thoughts cling to the day for too long. But right now, you do not have to press anything, you do not have to remember anything, you do not have to stay alert. Adjust your pillow if you need to. Pull your blanket a little closer over your shoulder, or let your arm fall heavily to your side. Let your jaw loosen and your tongue rest where it wants to rest. Take one slow breath in through your nose and let it slide out in a long, quiet sigh. Because we are going somewhere very old and very quiet. Congratulations! You have just woken up as an ordinary Roman citizen. It is early morning in the city of Rome, sometime in the 1st century of the empire, during the long, confident rule of a strong emperor, perhaps Trajan. The exact year does not matter to you because you are not thinking in years or dates. What matters is the light that is slowly changing the color of your room. You do not wake up to a ringing or a buzz. You wake up to light. At first, it is just a faint gray awareness pressing against your closed eyes. Then you feel that the darkness around you is no longer absolute, and when you open your eyes, you see a thin band of pale brightness seeping in through the wooden shutters of your small bedroom window. Those shutters are not made of glass. They are thick wooden boards, a little warped with age, with tiny gaps where the pieces meet. Through those gaps, narrow lines of morning light slide in and paint faint stripes across the plastered wall opposite the bed. Dust motes float slowly through those stripes, drifting in the still air like tiny, lazy sparks. The bed you are lying on is simple. A wooden frame creaks softly as you shift your weight. Straps of leather or woven cords run across it and support a mattress stuffed with straw and bits of wool. It is not perfectly even. There is a gentle, familiar hollow where your body usually rests, a dip shaped slowly over many nights. The linen sheet against your skin is slightly rough, not irritating, just textured enough that you can feel the weave when you drag your fingertips lightly across it. On top of you lies a woolen blanket, thick and a little heavy, smelling faintly of smoke and clean air and the oil that was used to soften it. The air in the room is cool, but not painfully cold. Rome at dawn can hold a chill that sits on your cheeks and hands, but the thick walls of the house, made of brick and stone and plaster, have kept most of the deeper night cold out. You can feel a slight coolness on the tip of your nose and on the backs of your hands where they rest outside the blanket, but your chest and legs are comfortably warm under the wool. You stretch slowly, still lying down. Your toes push forward until the blanket pulls a little tight, and then you let them relax again. Your arms slide up for a moment above your head, then sink back to your sides. Your spine gently arches and then settles, sending a tiny sequence of clicks and sighs along your back that feel oddly satisfying. For a short time you stay exactly where you are, not quite asleep, not quite awake, listening. The first thing you notice is your own breathing, rhythmic and soft in the quiet room. Then your ears reach farther, beyond the blanket, beyond the bed, to the house and the city outside. There is a distant hollow clatter of a cart somewhere down a street, wooden wheels rattling over uneven paving stones, hitting the same dips and bumps they hit every morning. You hear the faint, high call of a rooster somewhere on a nearby rooftop or courtyard, repeating itself as if it has been given the job of reminding the sun that it is time to rise. You hear, muffled through walls and doors, a small, everyday chorus inside the house. A door opens with a short wooden squeak. A quiet voice speaks a few words you do not quite catch. Something ceramic touches something wooden, a jar being set on a table or a bowl being moved. Rome is huge, with hundreds of thousands of lives unfolding at once, but right now you experience it only as layers of sound pressing gently against your walls, overlapping and fading, never completely gone. You decide that it is time to rise. You reach down to the edge of the blanket, lift it, and swing your legs over the side of the bed. Your feet drop until your soles meet the stone floor. The tiles are cool and very slightly dusty, smoothed by many years of bare skin and leather sandals. For a moment you stay sitting there, shoulders slightly rounded, elbows resting loosely on your thighs, feeling the weight of your body settle downward through your hips, into the edge of the mattress, and into the bed frame. Your bedroom is small, perhaps 3 slow steps from one wall to the other. The walls are covered in plaster and painted with simple colors, mostly deep, faded reds and warm yellows, with maybe a border of darker lines running around the middle like a belt. The paint has tiny cracks in some places, thin as spider webs, where the plaster has shifted with time. In one corner stands a modest wooden chest. The wood is darkened from use and rubbed smoother where hands always touch it to lift the lid. Inside are your folded clothes, laid one on top of another, in an order you know without needing to look very closely. Against another wall sits a narrow stand, and on that stand rests a small clay lamp. Its surface is slightly rough, with a simple pressed decoration, maybe a leaf or a circle around the center. The wick, blackened at the tip, still remembers last night's flame. A faint ring of soot stains the ceiling above it, where many nights of fire have left their mark. Near the bed, there is a low stand holding a ceramic basin and a clay jug. The jug is heavy for its size, filled yesterday at a nearby fountain. A thin crust of dried water has built up around its mouth, where drops have run down and evaporated again and again. You rise and walk the few steps to the basin. Your feet make soft, whispering sounds on the floor, the same rhythm they have made every morning for years. You lift the jug with both hands, feeling the weight of the water shift inside it as you tilt it. A clear stream pours into the basin, splashing and spreading in slow circles until the bottom is covered. The sound is loud compared to the quiet of the room, a small, bright noise that marks the start of your day. You cup your hands, dip them into the cool water, and bring it up to your face. The chill touches your eyelids, your cheeks, the bridge of your nose. Sleep grains in the corners of your eyes dissolve and slide away. You rub water gently along your jaw, down your neck, over the back of your ears, feeling the freshness follow the path of your fingers. You smooth wet palms over your hair, pressing it down for a moment, before it springs lightly back toward its usual place. A few drops escape and roll slowly down the side of your neck and along your collarbone before disappearing into the linen at your chest. There are no bright bottles or perfumed soaps on the stand. There is only water, cool and honest, and perhaps a small flask of oil. If your household has managed to keep some scented oil, you reach for a simple clay container nearby. You pull out the stopper, and a faint smell rises, soft and green, maybe from myrtle leaves or crushed herbs mixed into the oil days or weeks ago. You press one fingertip lightly into the opening and tilt the container, letting just a small drop land on your skin. With slow circles, you spread it on your neck or across the back of one hand, leaving a thin, smooth sheen that catches the light when you move. You pat your face dry with a strip of linen hanging on a small peg. The cloth is worn, slightly stiff in places from repeated washings, but it does its job well, drinking in the water until your skin feels only cool, not wet. When you set the jug back down, the water in the basin settles into stillness again, with only a few tiny ripples fading out, like small circles of thought disappearing from the surface of your mind. Now you move to the chest and lift the lid. The subtle smell of woven fabric and old wood rises to meet you. You take out a light under tunic first, cloth that has been washed so many times that it hangs softly over your hands. You pull it over your head and feel it slide down your shoulders, brushing gently across your skin as it falls into place. Over that, you lift your main tunic made of undyed wool or pale linen. The fabric is thicker but still flexible, with small irregularities where threads were slightly tighter or looser as it was woven. You slip your arms through, let the garment drop around you, and tie a belt or simple cord around your waist to gather it in, creating folds that fall in vertical lines down to your knees. The tunic smells faintly of clean air, and maybe a little of smoke from the hearth where it hung to dry last time it was washed. If you are a man with business that requires a formal appearance today, you know that somewhere nearby hangs a toga, a heavy drape of thick wool that marks you as a citizen. Just thinking about its weight on your left arm and shoulder almost makes your muscles tighten in anticipation. You decide that for now, inside the house, the tunic and belt are enough. The toga can wait until you step closer to the public eye. If you are a woman, you choose a longer tunic, letting it fall closer to your ankles, and you may lift a stola from the chest, a garment worn over the main tunic that signals your status and respectability. You arrange it carefully, drawing it around your body and securing it with a belt that creates graceful, practical folds. A light shawl lies ready to be pulled over your head later when you walk outside. You sit on the edge of the bed once more and reach for your sandals. Each sandal is made of layered leather soles, darkened by countless steps, with straps that loop and cross around your feet. You place one foot onto the sole Feel the shape that has molded to you over time and begin to pull the straps into place. The leather is supple where it flexes, a little stiff at the edges where it has dried. You wind the strap behind your heel, across the top of your foot, around your ankle, and then tie it in a small knot you could make even with your eyes closed. The other sandal follows until both feet feel held, not squeezed, ready for stone and dust. As you sit there, you hear a new sound from farther inside the house. The faint clatter of clay bowls touching each other, the soft thump of a loaf of bread being set down, the sigh of a door curtain being pushed aside and falling back into place. Someone is fully awake already. You stand and move to your door, a wooden panel that swings inward with a gentle scrape of wood against stone. You step out into the corridor and feel the air change slightly. The house, a typical Roman domus, is built around its center, an inward-facing place where light and sky and water meet. The corridor you stand in now leads you slowly toward that center, the atrium. Your footsteps tap softly along the floor, their echo mixing with distant household sounds. The walls along the passage are painted more simply than your bedroom walls, with broad blocks of color and maybe a few decorative lines, nothing too elaborate, but enough to make bare plaster feel intentional and cared for. As you step into the atrium, the space opens around you like a lung inhaling. Above you, part of the roof is open in a neat rectangle, the compluvium. Through it, fresh morning light falls into the room and onto the shallow rectangular pool of water directly below the impluvium. The water in the pool is still, with just the faintest tremble from a tiny draft that crosses its surface. It reflects the pale sky and the edges of the roof opening, showing you a small, trembling mirror of the world above. The air here smells of many things at once. A trace of last night's cooking fire clings to the rafters, a soft, dry smoke scent. You catch the green, sharp smell of olive oil from somewhere near the kitchen area, the more neutral smell of damp plaster and stone, and, underneath everything, the gentle scent of clean water that has been sitting and waiting in the pool and in stored jars. Around the edges of the atrium, you see painted walls, more decorative than in the corridor. Thin columns may support an inner frame, their surfaces smooth and cool to the touch. Birds and vines are painted in panels between columns. Small landscapes with tiny trees and imagined buildings stretch away into fake distance on the walls, giving a sense of bigger space inside a very real one. In one corner of the atrium, you notice a small household shrine, set into a niche in the wall or standing on a narrow shelf. It shelters small figures of the household gods, the Lares and the Penates, guardians of home and family. Someone has left offerings here recently. A little cup of wine, a few crumbs of bread, a small wreath of dried leaves. You pause for a heartbeat, eyes resting on the tiny faces of the painted or carved figures. You do not need to say anything out loud. In your mind you give a small, quiet wish for a day of calm and simple tasks, for good bread and safe water, for nothing dramatic at all. From the direction of the kitchen, you hear someone cutting bread on a wooden board. The distinct sound of knife against wood, then the soft tearing sound as crust breaks and crumbs scatter. Your stomach responds in a small, low growl, reminding you that the last meal was many hours ago. Breakfast in Rome, in Taculum, is not a feast. It is a modest beginning. You walk toward the kitchen area, where a simple table stands near a small hearth. The hearth still holds a faint warmth from last night, a few dull coals that might be coaxed into flame later. On the table, you see a round loaf of bread, darker than the soft white loaves of your own time, made from grain ground in stone mills that leave tiny bits of bran and grit in the flour. The crust is thick and a little cracked, the inside dense and solid. A clay bowl nearby holds a few olives, glossy and wrinkled, black and green together. Another small dish contains a little cheese, perhaps goat cheese, crumbly along the edges where it has been cut before. There is also a small jug of watered wine, thin and mild, or a jug of plain water drawn from a public fountain where water runs constantly from an aqueduct into stone basins. You take a piece of bread, feeling its weight in your hand. You tear off a chunk, and the inside shows itself, soft but heavy, with a faint smell of toasted grain and smoke. You dip the bread lightly into olive oil, or press a piece of cheese against it, then bring it to your mouth. The texture is chewy. You have to work your jaw a little more than you would for modern bread, and the effort itself is grounding. The taste is simple and deep, earthy grain, a hint of sourness from fermentation, a whisper of smoke from the oven. You eat slowly, not because you are consciously savoring each bite, but because that is simply how this food is eaten. Each mouthful takes its time to chew, and your body has to move in a slow, steady rhythm to deal with it. You wash it down with a sip of watered wine or a sip of cool water, feeling the liquid slide along your throat and into the warmth of your chest. There is no coffee on the table, no tea, no bright sugar. There is only this bread, these olives, this cheese, this water, and the quiet movement of your jaw and throat as you send them down into a stomach that has waited all night. Around you, other members of the household move slowly through the same pattern. Someone reaches past you for a cup. Someone else tears their own piece of bread and dips it in oil. A child may yawn and rub one eye with the back of a small fist while holding onto a crust with the other hand. No one is rushing to finish. There is no precise minute marked by a digital clock that will make you late for anything. Time is something you feel in the angle of light in the atrium, and in the height of the sun you cannot yet see directly. When you finish, you brush crumbs from your hands and from the edge of the table. The sounds from the street outside the door are a little louder now. A vendor calls out, his voice rising and falling as he lists the items he has to sell. Farther away, a dog gives a short, sharp bark, and then another, before quiet settles again. It feels like the right moment to step out into the city. You move back through the atrium, past the small household shrine, past the pool with its slowly shifting reflection, and toward the front door. The wooden door is thick and solid. You slide the bolt aside, feel the small vibration in the wood as it moves, and then pull the door inward. Outside, the world of Rome pours softly toward you in light and sound and scent. You step over the threshold and onto the narrow street, and the day truly begins. Your sandals meet the paving stones with a different sound now, a slightly sharper tap as they hit the harder surface. The street is just wide enough for a cart to pass if everyone else presses to the sides. On either side, houses and shops rise 2 or 3 stories, with wooden balconies jutting out here and there, casting thin stripes of shade. Laundry hangs from some upper windows, tunics and cloths drifting lazily in a faint breeze, the bottom edges lifting and falling as if they are breathing with the city. The sky that you can see is a long, narrow strip, pale blue now, though near the horizon, which you cannot see from here, the sun is climbing steadily. A man passes you, carrying 2 wicker baskets suspended from a wooden yoke across his shoulders. Each slow step makes the baskets swing gently, their contents rustling and shifting, perhaps vegetables from a garden or goods for a shop. A woman in a worn but neat tunic sweeps dust and bits of debris from her doorstep into the street with a stiff brush made of twigs tied together. The sweeping sound is rhythmic, back and forth, like a soft metronome marking ordinary time. A boy runs past you barefoot, his feet slapping the stones with small, quick sounds. His laughter bounces off the walls as another child chases him, both of them weaving between adults with the ease of bodies that belong to the street. The air carries a thick mix of smells: fresh bread from a nearby bakery, hot and comforting, damp stone, and old dust from the street itself. The animal smell of a donkey tied somewhere nearby, shifting its weight and snorting softly. Smoke from small fires where shopkeepers heat oil or water. Somewhere the sharp tang of fish may be laid out on a stall a few streets away. You begin to walk, not hurried, simply letting your feet carry you along the route they know well. As you move, you feel the unevenness of the road through the soles of your sandals. Some stones sit slightly higher than others, and there are shallow depressions where carts have worn faint grooves over many years. A thin channel runs along the side of the street to catch wastewater, and you naturally step around the places where liquid collects. Shop fronts open directly onto the street. Many of them are simple, square openings in the wall, guarded at night by wooden shutters that are now folded back or propped open. Inside one, a baker moves quickly between a counter and the back of his shop. Round loaves sit cooling on boards, their surfaces split by the heat, their crusts shining slightly where steam still seeps out. The air here is thick with warmth and the smell of roasted grain. Next to him, a small wine cellar prepares for the day. He rolls a squat wooden barrel carefully into position, using his shoulder and both hands to guide it so it does not tilt too far. The staves of the barrel are dark from repeated handling and from wine that has spilled and dried there many times. Farther along, a cloth merchant lifts a folded length of fabric and flicks it gently so that it unfurls and hangs from a rod above his stall. The cloth catches the light, showing a deep red dye along its length, with tiny variations where the color soaked more strongly or more lightly into the fibers. You recognize many of these faces, even if you do not always use their names. You nod toward the baker, and he returns a small, wordless nod between tasks. You tilt your head to the cloth seller, who lifts his hand briefly in acknowledgement. Rome is enormous, but your neighborhood is small and familiar. You turn gradually toward the direction of the Forum, the public heart of the city, where news and law and rumor and business all swirl together. As you move closer to the center, the streets widen a little. The walls pull back and allow more sky to appear overhead. Columns begin to appear, standing in rows along one side or framing a larger open space. The sound of the city changes slowly as well. There are more voices speaking at the same time, more footsteps, more layered noises that blur together into a low human hum. You step out into the Forum Romanum, and the space around you opens fully. Stone lies under your feet in broad, flat slabs. Buildings frame the square, some with tall steps leading up to grand porticos, others with long colonnades that create cooler, shaded walkways. Groups of people stand together, talking. Others move purposefully from one building to another. Vendors with small carts or baskets offer simple food, roasted nuts, thin cakes, cups of warm wine. Voices rise and fall in conversations about taxes, debts, land, marriages, small legal matters, and distant events in provinces you may never see. You are not one of the powerful men who stand in the center of crowds and speak loudly. You are one of the many who listen, who move quietly along the edges, who bring petitions and questions and everyday concerns here, because this is where answers eventually appear. You do the business that brought you here. Maybe you approach a scribe sitting at a small portable desk, his reed pen ready, his tablets open. You dictate a short request, and his hand moves steadily as he scratches your words into the wax or onto a sheet. Maybe you listen to an announcement being read aloud from a raised stone platform, the reader's voice clear and steady as it rolls across the square. The meaning of the words touches your life only lightly, but you still feel part of something larger by standing here and hearing them. Maybe you simply stand for a while at the edge of the crowd and absorb the atmosphere, letting the shapes of togas and tunics, the dark and light of hair and cloth, the moving lines of people become part of a slow, visual rhythm that your mind does not have to analyze too much. When your tasks are done, you shift back toward the shade of a colonnade, stepping out of the direct sun as it grows stronger overhead. The stone under the colonnade is cooler. The air here smells faintly damp, like stone that has not fully warmed yet. You walk along this shaded path, listening to your own footsteps echo softly between the columns and the wall. The time feels like late morning now. Your stomach gives a quiet, questioning ache, wondering when it will be asked to work again. You know there will be a more substantial meal later in the day, but for now, the body wants something small to carry it from morning to afternoon. You step away from the forum into a nearby street where a thermopolium waits, its wide counter facing the road. The stone counter has several round openings in its surface where large clay jars, called dolia, are set down into it. Each jar holds something different. One is filled with a thick stew of lentils and vegetables, its surface glossy, with a thin layer of oil. Another holds a porridge made from barley, studded with pieces of greens or bits of meat. Another might contain a dish of chickpeas cooked until soft, flavored with herbs. Warm steam rises slowly from the openings, bringing with it a rich mix of smells, of cooked grain, of onion, of herbs like coriander or dill, of oil warmed over fire. You hand over a few bronze coins to the person behind the counter, whose hands move with easy practice. They scoop a portion of one dish into a simple ceramic bowl and pass it to you without ceremony. You step aside so someone else can order, and you lean your shoulder against the wall near the entrance. The bowl is warm in your hands, heat pressing gently into your palms, the rough surface of the clay comfortable against your skin. You lift a spoonful or pinch with bread, bring it to your mouth, and taste. The food is plain but satisfying, soft against your tongue, filling the hollowness in your stomach in slow, steady waves. The warmth spreads from your chest outward, a quiet heaviness that is not sleep yet, but points in that direction. Near you, a laborer in a stained tunic does the same, eating with the focused inattention of someone whose body demands fuel more than flavor. A woman with a basket at her feet eats more slowly, gaze drifting now and then down the street, half lost in thought. No one is in a rush. Bowls are eaten clean and then returned so they can be washed and used again and again, as they have been many times before. When you finish, you hand your bowl back, wipe your mouth with the back of your hand or a small cloth, and feel the food settle securely inside you. The morning has already done much. You have moved from bed to basin to table to street to forum and back through shaded walkways and food stalls. Your muscles have warmed. Your senses have filled themselves with all the small textures and sounds and smells of the city. And the day still stretches ahead of you, slow and wide, like a long Roman road disappearing toward a faint horizon. You stand for a moment outside the thermopolium, feeling the last of the warmth from the bowl still lingering in your hands even after you have given it back. The taste of lentils and herbs still rests on your tongue, faint and comforting. The street here is a little busier now. People pass close to you in both directions, tunics brushing lightly, sandals tapping the stone. A man leads a small donkey loaded with sacks that bump softly against its sides with each step. Two older women walk arm in arm, speaking in low voices, their words more like a gentle flow of sound than distinct sentences in your ears. You step away from the wall and begin to walk again. You are heading toward the place where you work, a modest workshop tucked into one of the countless streets that crisscross the city. You know the route without thinking about it. Your body could probably carry you there even if your mind wandered somewhere else entirely. You turn down a narrower side street where the light falls in sharper angles between the buildings. Here the sounds shift again. Hammers strike in a regular rhythm from a metalworker's shop nearby. From another doorway, you hear the rasp of a saw moving steadily through wood, back and forth, back and forth. Children sit on a doorstep, playing with small objects, maybe pebbles or carved pieces of bone, arranging them on the ground and then pushing them into new patterns. One of them looks up briefly as you pass, then returns immediately to the important task of being completely absorbed in a simple game. Your own workshop is modest but solid. A simple doorway opens onto the street, with no door during the day, only a heavy curtain that can be pulled across at night. You step inside and feel the air change once more. The light here comes mostly from the open doorway and from a small, high window that lets in a pale beam which falls across your work area. Dust floats lazily in that narrow column of light, drifting and turning as if it has nowhere else to be. The room smells of the materials you handle every day. If you are a scribe, there is the faint, sharp scent of ink, of scraped parchment or smooth wax, and of wood from the stylus handles. If you are a woodworker, the air holds the dry sweetness of shavings and sawdust, resin, and aged boards. If you are a simple leather worker, there is the rich, earthy smell of hides and oil and dyed straps. Whatever your trade, the space is organized in the way your hands understand best. Tools hang on the same hooks they always hang on. A low table holds items in various stages of completion. A stool stands in the exact spot where you know you will sit most of the day, its 3 or 4 legs worn smooth at the places where they have rubbed against the floor for years. You move slowly through the familiar motions that begin your work. You set down anything you carried from home. You straighten 1 or 2 objects that have shifted slightly since yesterday. You check the surface of your table, brushing off a stray curl of wood or a crust of dried wax with the side of your hand. Your fingers find your tools, without needing to search. There is a comfort in the way they fit your grip. A knife handle molded to the curve of your palm, a stylus that sits between your fingers in the same angle every time, a hammer whose weight your wrist knows intimately. Outside, the city keeps moving, but in here, time narrows down to a smaller channel. You begin to work. If you are a scribe today, you pull a writing board toward you. The surface is smooth, with faint scars where other letters have been scratched and erased. You warm a little wax with the heat of your thumb, smoothing it until it is soft and ready to receive new marks. Your stylus presses gently into the wax, leaving fine lines behind. Each letter is made from a few simple strokes, repeated again and again. Your hand moves steadily, not fast, not slow, just in a constant, even rhythm. The faint scratching sound becomes almost like breathing to your ears, a soft, continuous whisper of work. If you are shaping wood instead, you place a board across your knees or on the workstand. You draw the blade along its length, and curled ribbons peel away, falling in soft spirals to the floor. Each stroke is smooth and practiced. The resistance of the wood under the blade is familiar, a kind of gentle pressure that pushes back against your hand just enough to keep your arm awake. If your trade is leather, you lay a strip across a flat stone and measure it by sight and feel. You cut where you know it must be cut, the knife sliding through with a quiet, clean sound, leaving a new edge that is neat and even. Whatever the specific work, it is repetitive in a way that can be surprisingly soothing. Your mind does not need to invent anything new in this moment. It only needs to follow the patterns it already understands. You hear the faint scrape of your stool as you shift your weight now and then. You hear someone passing in the street outside, their footsteps more distant now because your attention has turned inward. You may catch a snatch of a conversation, a laugh, a bit of a song, and then it fades again as the speaker moves on. Hours move by in this way without needing to be named. You occasionally pause to flex your fingers, to roll your shoulders, to straighten your back. You glance up at the rectangle of sky in your small window and notice that the light has shifted from the gentle pale of morning to something stronger and more direct. Shadows in the room have moved slightly along the walls and floor. At some point, you set your tool down and stand up fully, letting your legs straighten and take your full weight. A soft ache makes itself known in your lower back, the sort of ache that comes from steady, honest effort. The thought of the baths drifts across your mind like a cool breeze. The public baths are not a rare luxury. They are one of the routines that give shape to your days. The idea of warm water, of steam, of letting your muscles loosen under heat and then awake again under cold is very appealing right now. You tidy your workspace just enough to leave it. Tools are put back onto their hooks or shelves in the same order they always follow. The piece you have been working on is placed carefully aside where dust will not fall too heavily on it. You step out again into the street, blinking once at the brighter light. The sky has deepened into a stronger blue overhead. The air feels warmer on your cheeks and arms. The path to the baths is well worn in your memory. You can almost walk it with your eyes half closed. You move through a series of streets that gradually widen and straighten. The buildings around you become taller, more imposing. The sound of water can be heard from fountains in small squares where constant streams pour from sculpted mouths into stone basins, overflowing and flowing onward to gutters and channels that carry the excess away. Soon you see the bath complex ahead. It is a large structure with high outer walls and broad, arched doorways. People are coming and going in a steady but unhurried stream. Some carry small baskets with towels and jars of oil. Others walk with empty hands, knowing that most of what they need will be inside. You step through the entry and into the changing hall, the apoditerium. This room is wide and tall. Light filters in from above through high windows or openings, falling in patches on the floor. Benches line the walls, and there are shelves or niches where people place their clothes and belongings. You undress here, taking off your tunic and belt, folding them and placing them in a spot you will remember. The air against your bare skin feels different, cooler in places, warmer in others, depending on where the sun falls on the stone. An attendant may be nearby, watching over the shelves, ready to help if needed. Their presence a quiet assurance that your things will still be here when you return. From the changing room, you move toward the first inner chamber, the tepidarium, the warm room. As you step over the threshold, you feel the air shift immediately. It is warmer here, but not hot. The warmth wraps slowly around you, like a shawl placed gently over your shoulders. The walls are decorated with painted scenes and molded plaster. Figures of gods and heroes, vines and flowers, swirling patterns that frame the room with gentle color. Benches are arranged along the walls, and people sit or recline there, talking quietly or simply resting with eyes half closed. You find a place and let yourself sit down, allowing your body to adjust in stages to the warmth. You feel the heat seeping into your arms, your legs, the muscles of your back. Your breathing slows a little on its own. The humidity in the air is light but present. Drops of water cling to the plaster near the ceiling, catching the light and then sliding slowly downward. Somewhere nearby, water drips at a steady pace, a small, dependable sound that marks the passing of moments more gently than any clock. When you feel ready, you move toward the caldarium, the hot room. The moment you enter, a deeper heat presses around you. The air is heavy with steam. The floor under your feet feels distinctly warm, heated from beneath by the hypocaust, the system of raised floors and hot air channels that the builders have cleverly hidden from sight. A pool of hot water waits along one side of the room. Its surface shivers slightly with rising steam. You ease yourself in slowly. First your toes, then your ankles, then your shins as you descend the steps. The water clings hot around your calves, your knees, and then your thighs as you sink deeper until it reaches your waist, then your chest if you choose to go that low. There is that brief, sharp awareness as your body meets the heat, a bright edge of sensation. Then, as you stay still, it softens into a deep, enveloping warmth. Your muscles begin to let go in layers. The tension in your shoulders, built up from lifting and carrying and bending all morning, loosens a notch. The small stiffness in your lower back fades gradually as the hot water surrounds it. Even the tiny muscles in your hands, which have held tools or styluses for hours, begin to relax, their grip on invisible work slowly easing. You close your eyes for a while. With your eyes closed, the world narrows to simple sensations. You feel the weight of the water against your skin, the way it presses equally from all sides, supporting you. You feel beads of sweat forming along your temples and chest, mixing with the bathwater. You hear the muffled sounds of others in the room, the gentle splash as someone else enters or leaves the pool, the low murmur of two people talking near the edge, a quiet sigh of relief from someone who has just lowered themselves into the heat. At some point, an attendant with practiced hands may offer oil for your skin. You step out of the pool and stand where the air is still warm and wet. The oil is poured into one palm, thick and smooth. You rub it over your arms, your chest, your legs, feeling the slick layer form between your skin and the air. Then comes the striggle, the curved metal scraper. With slow, steady movements, you or the attendant draws it along your skin, from shoulder to elbow, from thigh to knee, collecting oil, sweat, and dirt together. It is not painful. It is firm but careful, like someone erasing old lines from a wax tablet to make space for new words. You watch the mixture fall away or be wiped off, leaving your skin feeling unusually light and new. When you have had enough of the heat, you move on to the frigidarium, the cold room. The air hits you first, cooler and drier, brushing over your warm skin like a soft cloth dipped in fresh water. The pool here is clear and still, its surface unbroken and slightly reflective. You step in deliberately. Cold rises around your ankles, your calves, your knees, waking your skin in a quick, bright shock. You draw a breath as the chill climbs higher, but there is a strange pleasure in it, like plunging your hands into a bucket of water on a hot day. You do not need to stay long, just long enough for your body to feel the full contrast between the hot and the cold, for your blood to move sharply and then settle again. When you step out, the air of the room feels perfectly balanced against your warmed skin, neither hot nor cold, simply right. You return, through the warm room, to the changing hall. Your tunic feels different as you pull it over your head. The cloth lies against clean skin now, slipping more smoothly over your shoulders and chest. Your sandals go back onto feet that feel lighter and more awake. You take a moment in the changing room just to stand still, to feel the way your body has changed from when you entered. There is a looseness now in your limbs, a relaxed heaviness that suggests both calm and quiet strength. Then you walk out again into the daylight. The sun has progressed steadily across the sky while you were inside. The light in the streets has deepened, casting shorter, sharper shadows under ledges and balconies. The afternoon is unfolding. You begin to make your way back toward your neighborhood, back toward your workshop, or perhaps toward a brief errand first. On the way, you pass a small shrine set into a wall at a street corner. It is simple, with a modest little ledge holding a small figure or painted image. Someone has placed fresh flowers there recently, their petals still bright and unwilted. A bit of bread sits next to them, and a few coins lie scattered on the stone. You pause briefly, letting your eyes rest on the tiny altar. You may touch the wall lightly with your fingertips or simply incline your head a fraction. No elaborate gesture is needed. Then you move on. You reach a fountain where clear water pours continuously from a carved spout into a wide stone basin. People gather here in an easy pattern. A woman holds a large clay jar, steadying it as it fills from the stream. A boy splashes his hands in the basin until an older relative gives him a gentle scolding and a fond tap on the shoulder. You step up when it is your turn, lower a small container or cup, and let the water run into it. You drink slowly. The water is cool from its long journey through hidden channels. It tastes of stone and distance and the simple miracle of being clean and constant in a crowded city. The sensation of it moving down your throat, joining the warmth of the food and the memory of the baths, adds one more layer of quiet satisfaction to your body. You fill a small jar to take with you and then resume your walk. Back at your workshop, the space welcomes you with the same familiar smell and light as before, but your body responds to it differently now. Your arms feel looser as you pick up your tools again. The small aches that had begun earlier have faded or softened. You settle onto your stool and return to your work, slipping back into the repetitive motions as if you had never left, but with a new ease in each movement. Outside, shadows slowly lengthen. The hum of the city changes tone in ways you feel more than consciously notice. The sharper noises of midday, the bargaining voices, the clatter of deliveries soften. More laughter appears in the background as people begin to think about the later parts of their day. Children's voices become more distinct again as they claim bits of street and doorway for their games. Inside your small room, the rectangle of light from the window creeps gradually across the floor, climbing the opposite wall in a slow, invisible climb measured by the sun. You continue to shape wood or leather or words, stroke after stroke, cut after cut, line after line. Every so often, you pause and simply rest your hands on your knees, your eyes drifting to the doorway where you can see just a sliver of the street and the light beyond. Time feels thick and gentle. There is no single moment that stands out. Just a long, smooth stretch of small, nearly identical movements, like beads on a string that you run through your fingers again and again. Eventually, you feel the day turning toward evening. It is not a sudden change. It is more like the slow dimming of a lamp, the soft drop in brightness and temperature that your body reads even before your eyes consciously register it. You finish the section of work you are on. You gently put your tools away. You dust off your hands, watching fine particles drift down and disappear into the shadows along the floor. You step outside once more, leaving the workshop behind you for the night. The streets now glow with the warm light of late afternoon. Sunlight brushes the upper stories of buildings in gold tones, while the lower walls fall into cooler shade. A woman leans out of an upper window, shaking a cloth in slow, practiced movements, sending up a tiny puff of dust that dissolves into the air. A man pulls a shutter closed halfway, adjusting it to block the lowering sun while still letting in the breeze. You make your way back toward home, each corner and doorway familiar. You pass by the same small shrine at the corner. The flowers have wilted slightly since earlier, their heads bowing under their own weight, but they are still bright with color. You cross in front of the same fountain, now with fewer people around it. A single woman fills a last jar before heading home, and a child sits on the basin edge, kicking small ripples into the water with a bare heel. The sounds of the city have settled into a lower pitch. There are fewer shouted offers from sellers and more ordinary conversations. More quiet exchanges between people who are ending their work for the day and thinking about their evening meal. You reach your own doorway at last. The wood is the same under your hand as every evening, slightly rough at the edges, smoother where many fingers have pushed it open. You step back into the cool dimness of the house, leaving the open street behind you. Inside, the atrium greets you with its calm. The sky visible through the opening above is changing again, shifting from bright blue toward a softer, deeper color. The water in the impluvium reflects this change, its surface now darker, with a faint shimmer of color where the sky glows near the edges of the roof. The walls, painted in reds and yellows, look richer in the lower light. The colors seem to draw closer to you, the details of vines and birds and borders becoming softer and more unified to your eyes. From the kitchen, you catch the first strong sense of the evening meal beginning. Garlic cut and warmed in oil. Onions slowly softening in a pot. The deeper smell of grain simmering in water or broth. Perhaps a hint of fish or a little meat if today is generous. These smells weave together as they drift through the house, wrapping around your senses in a way that feels both ancient and familiar, as if your body has always known them. You let yourself breathe them in deeply, your stomach responding with a quiet, anticipatory pull. You stand still for a few heartbeats in the atrium, letting the calm of the house settle over you like a soft cloth laid across your shoulders. The faint glow from the kitchen doorway spills into this central space in a gentle band of light across the floor tiles. Dust motes turn slowly in that pale strip, moving in lazy spirals that match the unhurried pace of the evening. You walk toward your small room first to set your things down. The doorway is the same one you stepped through in the cool of early morning, but now the light inside is different. It is softer, tinted with the warm color of the low sun slipping through the small window and the faint reflection from the atrium lamp. Your bed waits in the same corner, the simple chest sits in its usual place, and the little stand still holds your lamp and a few small objects you keep close. You place whatever you carried from the workshop on the chest, feeling the slight roughness of the wood beneath your fingertips. The lid bears shallow marks from long years of use, small scratches and dents that you know by sight even if you never consciously notice them. You adjust your belt, smoothing the fabric of your tunic over your hips, and run one hand over your hair, which has dried completely now after the baths. In the small basin in the corner, the water from the morning still sits, now a little cloudier and cooler. You dip your fingers in and splash a bit onto your face, washing away the dust of the streets. The coolness feels gentler now than it did in the early chill, more like a quiet refreshment than a full awakening. The smells from the kitchen grow stronger, pulling your attention outward again. You leave your room and walk back toward that source of warmth and sound. The kitchen is a small but important part of the house, a cluster of stone and clay and fire where much of the daily rhythm comes together. A hearth glows low in the main cooking space. It is not a wide, roaring fire, but a carefully managed bed of embers and small flames that provide steady heat without flooding the house with smoke. An iron or bronze pot hangs above the embers, suspended from a simple support, and inside it, something thick is bubbling slowly. You can hear the gentle sound as small pockets of steam rise to the surface and burst one after another in a soft, irregular pattern. On a nearby table, rough but sturdy, ingredients are laid out in simple order. There is a small pile of onions with papery skins curling away at the edges. A bowl holds chopped herbs, green and fragrant, their scent rising whenever a stir of air passes over them. Another dish contains olives, dark and glossy, shining, with a thin sheen of oil. Bread from a nearby bakery rests under a cloth, still carrying a faint warmth in its crust. When you lift the cloth for a moment, the aroma of baked grain and smoke rises to meet you, wrapping around your senses in a familiar, soothing way. Someone in the household stirs the pot with a wooden spoon, drawing slow circles through the mixture. Each turn brings up steam scented with garlic, herbs, and whatever grains or lentils are cooking inside. The spoon taps gently against the side of the pot, a small, steady sound that you have heard so many evenings that it feels like part of the natural music of life. You help with simple tasks, moving at the same unhurried pace as everything else in the room. You might tear leaves from herb stems and scatter them into a waiting bowl, feeling the faint resistance and crispness under your fingertips. You might cut pieces of cheese, pressing the knife slowly through the firm texture, arranging the slices neatly on a plate. You might set out shallow dishes and cups on a low table, their clay surfaces cool and slightly rough against your skin. Every movement has a small, grounding weight to it. The table for the evening meal is not elaborate, but it holds what you need. A simple oil lamp sits at its center, its clay body stained from many previous nights, the wick trimmed and burning with a tiny, steady flame. The light is soft and golden, casting gentle shadows that sway slightly whenever someone passes nearby or the air shifts. You sit or recline where you usually do, your body settling into a familiar position. The surface beneath you might be a simple bench, firm under your hips, or a low couch with a padded cushion that bears the imprint of many evenings of use. The others in the household gather as well. Faces you know extremely well come into the circle of lamplight, each one shaped by years of similar days. Lines at the corners of eyes from laughter and sun. Small calluses and marks on hands from work. Hair arranged in simple knots or loose curls, practical and neat. Children, if there are children, move in little bursts of energy and then sudden stillness. A hand reaches out for an olive, then pauses as a gentle voice reminds them to wait. They shift on their stools, bare feet touching the cool floor, eyes following the dishes as they are placed on the table. The evening meal begins without ceremony, but with a quiet sense of shared habit. Bread is broken, the crust giving way under your fingers with a faint crackle, the inside soft and dense. You use it to scoop from the main pot, lifting a portion of thick stew that drips slowly back into the bowl, leaving just enough to reach your mouth. The first bite is warm and solid, filling your mouth with the taste of grain, herbs, and vegetables cooked until their separate edges blur into one gentle comfort. Olives add a sharp, salty contrast when you take one, the firm skin yielding to the press of your teeth, the rich taste spreading across your tongue. Perhaps there is a small piece of fish today, or a bit of cured meat cut into careful slices so that everyone receives at least a taste. You chew slowly, aware of the work that went into bringing even that small piece to the table. Water and a little wine, mixed together, fill the cups. The liquid moves softly as you lift the cup, catching the lamplight in faint glints on its surface. The taste is mild and familiar, less about excitement and more about the simple satisfaction of drinking something that matches the food and the moment. Voices around the table weave in and out of your awareness. Someone mentions something that happened in the street earlier, a small incident that would mean nothing to a distant historian, but everything to those who saw it. A cart got stuck in a narrow turning and had to be shifted by several people at once, their laughter rising as they pushed together and finally freed the wheel. Someone else speaks about the price of grain in the market, comparing it quietly to last season, weighing what that might mean for the months ahead. A younger voice recounts something learned that day, perhaps a new word, a new game, or a new detail about a god or hero from a story heard at the baths or in a neighbor's house. You listen, you speak a little, you fall silent again, letting the sounds wash over you the way warm water did earlier in the day. The lamp flame flickers gently whenever someone leans forward or shifts, casting moving patterns across faces and walls. Shadows stretch and shrink, softening features, turning even small gestures into slow, graceful shapes in the dim light. As the main dishes are finished and the pot grows lighter, the pace of eating slows naturally. Fingers stray to crumbs on the table, gathering them into small piles that are still eaten because nothing is wasted. Someone pours a little more watered wine into a cup, the liquid making a faint sound as it meets what is already there. A simple sweet finish might appear if today has been kind. Perhaps there are figs, soft and sticky inside, their seeds popping gently between your teeth. Perhaps there are a few dried dates, chewy and rich. Maybe there are nuts, cracked with a quiet tap against the table, or a small stone, the shells opening to reveal smooth, pale kernels. Each small bite feels more like a gesture of gratitude than a separate course, a way of acknowledging the day by giving it a gentle, pleasant ending in your mouth. When the meal winds down, plates and bowls are moved aside with soft sounds of clay touching wood. You help gather a few of them, carrying them to a basin where they can be rinsed and cleaned later. The weight of each dish in your hands is ordinary and reassuring, another simple task in a long line of simple tasks that together create a sense of order. The space around the table shifts now from eating to talking, from the business of feeding the body to the less urgent, more open business of letting the mind wander. Someone begins a story. It might be one you have heard many times before, one that has been told and retold in slightly different ways for years. Perhaps it is about the beginnings of the city, about twins and wolves and rivers and omens. Perhaps it is about a hero who traveled across seas and faced monsters and storms before finding his way home again. Perhaps it is about a relative from the countryside whose misadventures in the city still make people smile even after many retellings. The details almost do not matter anymore. What matters is the voice that carries them, the rise and fall of tone, the pauses in the right places, the way listeners lean in just a little at the familiar suspenseful moments, even though they already know what happens next. The lamplight makes the storyteller's hands stand out clearly as they gesture slowly. Fingers trace the shape of a river in the air. A hand rises to indicate height or danger. Another spreads wide to suggest a crowded army or a wide field. Children's eyes grow large, following these movements closely. Their bodies might fidget slightly, but their attention stays attached to the story as if it were a bright thread pulling gently at their thoughts. You listen too, not because you crave surprise, but because the familiar story wraps you in something safe and known. As the tale unfolds, your mind drifts in small, harmless ways. You imagine the river described, but in your mind, it looks a little like the slow water you have seen in the aqueduct channels outside the city. You imagine the fields but they resemble the patches of countryside you have crossed when visiting relatives, with their scrubby grass and low stone walls. You imagine the heroes, but sometimes they wear tunics and sandals very much like yours. The line between story and ordinary life becomes soft and hazy, and that softness is comforting. Now and then, laughter ripples gently around the room when the storyteller reaches a moment of clumsy mistake or clever trick in the story. It is not loud or bursting laughter, but a warm, shared sound that rises and falls like a small wave and then settles again into quiet listening. While the story continues, someone quietly trims the lamp wick with a small tool, pinching away the charred tip so that the flame burns more steadily once more. A faint smell of singed fiber briefly joins the air, then fades again into the general blend of oil, smoke, and cooked food. As time passes, the room grows dimmer at the edges. The corners of the space retreat into soft shadow, where shapes merge and details become less distinct. Only the area around the lamp remains sharp, a small island of warm light where faces and hands are clearly visible. Occasionally, a sound from outside slips in through the doorway or a small opening in the wall. The bark of a distant dog. The faint rattle of a cart on stone as someone takes one last load somewhere before full darkness. A short burst of laughter from neighbors, quickly fading as if wrapped and carried away by the night air. Inside, the story moves toward its resolution, not with rushing excitement, but with a calm inevitability. When it ends, there is a moment of quiet, a small, shared silence in which everyone seems to exhale at the same time. Someone remarks softly on a detail they like, maybe a clever turn of phrase or a favorite part of the tale. A child repeats a line, testing how it feels in their own mouth, then smiles shyly when others hear and nod. Bit by bit, people begin to rise from their places. Dishes are gathered more completely now and taken away. The pot is moved from the hearth, and the embers are gently spread, allowed to sink into themselves so that the fire will sleep more than burn. You step back into the atrium for a moment, drawn by the dim rectangle of the sky above. Night has deepened while you sat at the table. The patch of sky is now a deep, soft black, sprinkled with stars that seem sharper when seen through such a small frame. They look almost like tiny grains of pale sand scattered across dark cloth. If the moon is up, its light falls in a cool square onto the surface of the impluvium, turning the water into a mirror that shivers slightly whenever a faint breeze touches it. You stand at the edge of the pool and watch the reflections for a while. The reflected stars tremble slightly on the moving water, breaking into small fragments and then coming back together as the ripples spread and fade. The air here in the central space feels cooler than in the kitchen, carrying a hint of the night outside. You can smell stone cooling after the heat of the day, a subtle scent that is hard to name but very real to your senses. Somewhere in a neighboring house, a low song begins, perhaps a simple tune hummed without words as someone finishes their own evening tasks. The sound reaches you only faintly, a soft line of melody that rises and falls and then disappears for a moment before returning. You let your shoulders drop and your jaw loosen, feeling your body settle more deeply into the quiet of the hour. There are still small things to do before you rest, but none of them feel heavy or urgent. In a small side room, you might straighten a few items for tomorrow, making sure that certain tools or garments are where you will need them when the sun returns. You smooth a cloak that hangs from a peg, feeling the fabric beneath your fingers as you pull it into a neater line. You check a jar of grain or lentils, giving it a brief shake to gauge how much remains inside, the soft rattle of the contents answering your question more clearly than any written mark. If the household keeps small animals within part of the building at night for safety, you might hear them shifting now, hooves or paws scraping lightly on the floor, breath moving in steady, animal rhythms. A quiet snort from a tethered donkey, the soft rustle of a few chickens settling their feathers on a perch. These sounds add another layer to the sense of shared living that fills the building. When you return to the atrium again, the lamp there has been turned down a little, its flame smaller but still steady. The house has grown quieter. Voices are lower now, more like murmurs than full speech. Footsteps are softer, as if the walls themselves are encouraging everyone to move more gently as the night deepens. You know that in the rooms around you, other people are going through their own small end-of-day rituals. Someone unbraids their hair slowly, feeling each twist release under their fingers. Someone else folds a garment carefully and sets it on a stool near their bed. Another person shakes out a blanket and lets it fall into place over a simple mattress, smoothing it with long, even strokes. The whole house is like a living body, easing itself into rest, one limb at a time. You stand there in the center of it for a few more calm breaths, listening, smelling, feeling, letting every sense rest on something simple and gentle in the environment around you. You stay in the atrium a little longer, letting the quiet deepen around you like water in a still pool. The house feels as if it is exhaling after the long, slow effort of the day. You notice how the lamplight trembles just slightly whenever the night air brushes past the opening in the roof. The flame bends and then straightens again, never quite going out, never quite flaring up. On the walls, the painted shapes that seemed so clear in the bright hours have softened at the edges. Vines blur into simple dark lines. Birds become suggestions of wings and curves, more like memories than images. You feel your eyes relaxing in the dimness. They no longer have to track every detail, every object, every movement. They can simply rest on broad, gentle shapes and let the finer points slide away. Your body answers this visual softness with its own release. Your shoulders hang a little lower. Your arms feel heavier, in a pleasant way, as if each bone and muscle is settling into a place it has always known. You become aware of your breathing without trying to change it. In, out. Each breath moves through you like a slow tide, spilling in and then drawing out again, leaving you a little quieter each time. From somewhere deeper in the house, a door closes gently. The sound is muffled by stone and plaster, softened by distance, more like a sigh than a sharp noise. You know that behind that door, someone is folding themselves into their own version of rest. You stand for another moment at the edge of the impluvium, looking down. The water holds a few tiny fragments of reflected light. They shift and tremble with every slightest movement of air, like the last small thoughts drifting at the edge of your mind before they too dissolve. You lean forward just enough to trail the tips of your fingers over the surface. The water is cool and thin, closing smoothly again behind your touch. Tiny circles ripple outward from that single point, expanding until they reach the stone rim and fade away into stillness. You straighten slowly. Your feet are bare now, or nearly so. The soles used to stone, to tile, to small bits of grit that crunch here and there under your weight. Each step you take toward your room is careful but unforced, chosen by a body that has walked this same short path more times than it could ever count. The corridor leading to your sleeping space feels narrower at night. The darkness pools in corners and along the lower parts of the walls. But you are not uneasy. Your hand touches the wall briefly as you pass, fingers brushing the cool plaster, following a line that needs no sight to find. You reach your doorway and pause just inside. Your room greets you with a silence that is different from the silence of the atrium. There, the quiet was wide and shared. Here, it is close and intimate, wrapping itself more tightly around your body, around your thoughts. Whatever small light filters in from the rest of the house is enough to outline familiar shapes. The chest in its corner, the stand with the lamp, the wick now dark and curled after the last time you used it, the basin and jug, a faint gleam on their surfaces where the light touches them, and the bed. The simple, sturdy frame waits exactly where it always waits, legs planted firmly on the stone floor, cords or straps stretched beneath the mattress. The mattress itself carries the shape of your body the way a path carries the memory of every foot that has walked it. You move closer, each step slower than the last. You take your time with the final tasks of the day. You adjust your belt, undoing the knot or the clasp, with fingers that have repeated this motion so many times that they hardly need your attention. The fabric loosens around your middle, and you feel an immediate, gentle ease in your abdomen and lower back. You draw the tunic over your head, letting it slide down your arms in a smooth, familiar movement. The cloth whispers quietly against your skin as it passes, then folds softly in your hands. You lay it carefully over the chest or hang it on its usual peg, smoothing it once with a slow pass of your palm. Your sandals, if you still wear them, come off with the same calm repetition. A hand to the knot or buckle. A gentle pull. The soft release as leather that has gripped your foot all day opens and lets go. You place them side by side near the bed, aligned without thinking, already waiting for the next time your day begins. Your feet meet the cool stone fully now. The contact is direct and honest, a solid, grounding sensation that moves up through your ankles into your legs. You notice just how much more tired your legs feel when they no longer have to hold the weight of the day upright. They are ready, deeply ready, to be horizontal, supported, still. You sit on the edge of the bed and pause there. The straw-filled mattress compresses slightly under your weight, creaking in a low, familiar way. You place your hands on either side of you, feeling the texture of the linen sheet beneath your fingertips. It is a little rough, yes, but it is clean and known, with its own particular pattern of tiny irregularities, like a field of small hills and valleys under your skin. You straighten your back for a moment, letting your spine lengthen, vertebra by vertebra. Then you let it soften again, every small supporting muscle stepping back from effort. You roll your shoulders in slow circles, forward and back, coaxing the last traces of tension from them. You let your jaw hang a little looser, tongue resting gently against the floor of your mouth instead of pressing against your teeth. Another breath in, another breath out. You lower yourself fully onto the bed. First one elbow, then the curve of your side, Then the full length of your back settles into the shallow impression that has grown there over many nights. The mattress rises slightly around your shoulders and hips, holding you the way the sloping sides of a small hollow in the earth might hold a fallen leaf. You draw the wool blanket up over your body. It has weight, and that weight is comforting. It lies along your chest, your stomach, your thighs in one continuous, even pressure, as if the day itself is gently pressing you down into rest. You feel the slight scratch of the wool through the linen, the way the fibers catch a little on the hair of your arms and legs, not enough to irritate, just enough to remind you that you are wrapped in something solid and real. Your head finds its usual place on the small pillow or folded cloth. You adjust the angle just a little, turning your face toward the darker side of the room where there are fewer distractions. The back of your head sinks slowly into the support beneath it, and you feel the weight of your skull give itself completely to that support. The muscles at the base of your skull relax. The long cords along the sides of your neck soften, no longer having to hold your head upright. You become aware of your breathing again, now with more clarity. In and out. Your chest rises gently under the blanket, lifting the wool just a little with each inhale, then letting it fall back with each exhale. The movement is small but steady, a reliable rhythm that asks nothing of you except to let it continue. You let your attention travel slowly through your body, noticing each part as if you are making a calm inventory of tired but satisfied limbs. You begin with your feet. You notice the lingering sensation of stone beneath the skin, now replaced by the soft give of the mattress. You imagine the tiny muscles and bones of your toes, each one finally resting, no longer gripping or pushing or balancing. If there is any tightness there, you let it melt outward into the mattress with your next exhale. You move your awareness to your ankles. They have carried and turned and supported you all day over uneven stones, around puddles, through streets and rooms. Now they lie still, wrapped in warmth, no longer holding any angle or bearing any strain. With your next breath out, you imagine them sinking a little deeper into the bed. Your attention rises to your calves. You think of all the steps those muscles took today, lifting and lowering your body again and again without your conscious command. You feel a faint heaviness there now, a good, honest heaviness that comes from work completed. You let that heaviness spread as if each muscle fiber is untwisting, uncoiling, relaxing into a long, loose line. Your knees, often bent and straightened through the day, are now at whatever angle feels most natural and comfortable. You notice whether they are touching or slightly apart, and you accept whichever position they have chosen as exactly right for this moment. Your thighs rest side by side, large muscles that carried you through the forum to the baths, home again. Now they have nothing to do but yield to the weight of the blanket and the soft pull of gravity. You let them go slack, as if they are sinking downward through the bed and into the earth beneath the house. Your hips, the point where your upper body and lower body meet, release their own quiet tension. Any stiffness from standing, any small ache from twisting or lifting, loosens as you breathe out slowly. You imagine the joints there widening just a fraction, enough to let the day's strain slip out and away. Your belly softens. You no longer need to hold it in or brace it for effort. It rises and falls gently with your breathing, a soft hill under the blanket that moves only with the tide of air. You let the organs beneath rest too, all of them doing their quiet, automatic work, taking nutrients from the food you ate, sending strength where it is needed, without requiring any thought from you. Your chest feels broad and open. The ribs expand slightly with each inhale and contract slightly with each exhale, like the bellows of a small, well-made instrument. Your heart, somewhere within that protected space, continues its steady pulsing, a rhythm more ancient than any city, older than any empire. You do not have to direct it. You simply allow it to keep time for you. Your shoulders lie flat now, no longer drawn up toward your ears as they might have been during the more active parts of the day. You imagine any last tightness there dripping down your arms and out through your fingertips, leaving those joints broad and free. Your upper arms, your elbows, your forearms all lie in whatever position they have found, perhaps at your sides, perhaps resting on the blanket. You notice the weight of each arm separately. Then you imagine that weight doubling, not in burden but in relaxation, as every muscle within them chooses softness over effort. Your hands are still. No tools between your fingers now. No cups, no scrolls, no bundles to carry. The fingers curl slightly, naturally, like leaves at the end of a long day of sunlight. The palms feel the linen or the wool under them, a final, gentle sensation before even that awareness grows thin. Your neck, long and often strained, has nothing to hold. The pillow or folded cloth supports your head fully. You let your throat relax, noticing how the passage of air in and out becomes even quieter. Your jaw releases a little more. Your lips touch lightly or fall slightly apart, whichever feels easier. Your cheeks smooth out, lines fading as the muscles beneath them release their grip. Your eyes, already closed or half closed, drift comfortably toward true rest. The tiny muscles around them, which spend so much of the day focusing and tracking and narrowing against bright light, are now utterly free to soften. Your brow smooths. Any faint furrow that might have lingered there, any trace of concern or concentration, evens out as if a gentle hand has passed over your forehead. The skin there feels open and cool. Your scalp relaxes too, as if even the roots of your hair are releasing held tension. Now, your whole body lies in one long, continuous line of rest. From the crown of your head down through your neck and back, through your hips, along your legs, all the way to the tips of your toes, everything is supported. You are not holding yourself up. The bed is holding you. The floor is holding the bed. The earth is holding the floor. You are safe, cradled in layer upon layer of quiet stability. Outside your room, the city has drawn its own blanket of darkness over itself. The streets that carried so many footsteps now rest. The markets have emptied, their counters wiped, their shutters closed. The baths have cooled, steam long since faded from their surfaces. The forum, which hummed with voices and judgments and news, now stands mostly empty under the night sky, its columns pale in the moonlight, its stones holding the echoes of the day in silence. In other houses, other bodies lie, much as yours does now. Other chests rise and fall. Other blankets press down with the same steady weight. Other minds drift between the last thoughts of the day and the first shapeless forms of sleep. If you could rise up above the rooftops and look down, You would see this city not as a map of streets and buildings, but as a field of resting hearts, each one beating quietly in the dark. For now, though, you do not rise. You sink deeper into the mattress, deeper into the quiet, deeper into the slow, regular rhythm of your own breath. Thoughts still appear now and then, like small figures wandering across a distant street. What you did today, what you might do tomorrow. Little worries about grain and weather and work, about conversations you had or will have. You do not need to argue with these thoughts or chase them away. You simply watch them from a distance as they walk past, then turn a corner and disappear on their own. Whenever a thought feels too loud, you return gently to your breathing. In and out. You might count a few breaths if it helps, not as a test, but as a soft lullaby you are giving yourself. 1. In, out. 2. In, out. 3. You let the numbers fade when they want to. You do not have to reach any particular total. There is nowhere you have to arrive. Sleep is not a place you must walk to. It is a tide that will come in on its own when you are ready to float. You let your attention widen now, just enough to notice how perfectly ordinary and perfectly peaceful this moment is. You are lying in a small room in a large city. The walls around you are simple. The bed beneath you is simple. The life you lead is simple. And somehow, in that simplicity, there is a deep, quiet beauty. No one is asking you to be a hero. No one is waiting for a speech or a decision. You do not need to shape history. You only need to live this one small life, one day at a time, one breath at a time, one night of rest at a time. The empire outside your door can wait. The streets, the markets, the forums, the baths, the endless movements of trade and politics and rumor can all wait. Right now, the only task before you is to let go. You let go of the weight of your body into the bed. You let go of the weight of your thoughts into the dark. You let go of the day. You let go of tomorrow. You let yourself drift. The sounds around you grow softer and more distant. The faint murmur from the atrium, the far-off bark of a dog, the almost inaudible rustle as someone turns over in another room. All of it becomes part of a single, gentle background, like the hush of waves against a shoreline you can no longer quite see. Your body is warm. Your breathing is slow. Your mind is loose and floating, no longer gripping anything tightly. Somewhere in the distance of your awareness, the stars continue their ancient paths over the tiled roofs and stone columns of Rome. Somewhere, the first hints of tomorrow's bread are already imagined in the minds of bakers who will rise before dawn. Somewhere, water flows in aqueduct channels unseen in the dark, making its quiet way toward fountains and baths. All of that can continue without you for a little while. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to sleep. You are allowed to drift completely away from the edges of this day, carried gently inward by the rhythm of your own breathing. In and out. In and out. The simple, quiet life of an ordinary Roman citizen narrows now to this one point. A bed, a blanket, a breathing body, a soft, surrounding darkness. There is nothing more you have to do. Nothing more you have to remember. Nothing more you have to be. You can let go completely. Let the image of Rome fall quiet in your mind. Let the streets empty. Let the walls blur. Let the lamps go out one by one, until there is only the slow darkness behind your closed eyes, and within that darkness, the softest possible light of your own awareness, slowly dimming, slowly resting, slowly dissolving into sleep. Breathe in, breathe out, and now simply sleep.